Good morning. Today we finished the book of 2 Kings. And as we've been reading these 1st and 2nd Kings, a lot of the telling of the different king, king this, king that, they're pretty short. We don't hear a lot about the prophets that came and spoke with them and things, but we will hear a lot more about those and a lot more about these kings when we get to reading about, the different prophets and, and stuff. And we had a brief little bit about Isaiah. Well, we have a whole book about Isaiah and others as well. But as we finish this book of 2 Kings, in chapter 24, it begins with the first fall of Jerusalem, Judah. And the northern kingdom, Israel, has already fallen and is no longer led or ruled by a king of Israel. But as we ended chapter 23 yesterday, this king Jehoiakim had been installed as king, and today King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon comes up, and this Jehoiakim becomes his servant for 3 years. So Nebuchadnezzar, and this will be spelled, Nebuchadnezzar will be spelled two different ways, sometimes with a Nebuchadrezzar, with an R in it, and other times not, and they are the same person, same king, just different spellings. But Nebuchadnezzar comes, and so King Jehoiakim is kind of a puppet king under King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And it is the Babylonians that, complete the fall of Jerusalem. So this is kind of the first fall. I mean, so Judah, Jerusalem, even under King Jehoiakim, are really not an independent nation, independent state that way. But so after 3 years, this King Jehoiakim revolts against Nebuchadnezzar and ends up being killed. And another king, Jehoiachin, 18 years old, becomes the king. And shortly after he becomes king, then Nebuchadnezzar comes in and captures him and his mom, just a whole bunch of the royal court, and take them captives and take them to Babylon. And he carries off all the treasures of the temple, basically desecrates the temple and, carries off much of everything that is there. And so it says, verse 16, the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon all the men of valor, 7,000. The king of Babylon made Mattathiah, Joachim's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. So Jehoiachin is king, but he's in captivity in Babylon. And so the king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon appoints this other person, whose name then he changes to Zedekiah, as king of Judah, king of, in Jerusalem that way. And again, a puppet king, because this was the first fall of Jerusalem. They are no longer a ruling nation in so many ways. And this King Zedekiah, who was appointed then, says rules 11 years, as this kind of puppet king, I was just going to call him. But then he rebelled against the king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon in the 9th year. He rules 11 years, but in the 9th year he rebels. He tries to gain his freedom, tries to gain freedom for the nation of Judah and the city of Jerusalem, but it backfires. And so Nebuchadnezzar brings all of these men, they lay siege to Jerusalem, and of course, it's successful, and Jerusalem again falls. It says the famine was so severe, there was no food for the people. And a breach was made in the wall, and King Jehoiachin, or Zedekiah's men, flee. And the king of Babylon again comes in, and they knock down the walls of the city. They totally destroy the city. They burn the houses, and so Jerusalem is destroyed. the siege and everything happens, and everyone else basically then or I shouldn't say everyone, but the majority of the Israelites are taken captive and deposed to Babylon and to other nations. But King Nebuchadnezzar, in verse 22 of chapter 25, appoints Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, as the governor. And this is, an important deal. It's governor now, So Nebuchadnezzar had appointed, this person to be king. Well, now it's a governor. And it's, like in Jesus' day, then, the Roman Empire had control of Jerusalem and Judah and Israel, the northern kingdom. And they had a governor there, that was the one that made the decision. And this, the governor then, was a Roman governor, not an Israelite governor. So this Gedaliah was an Israelite, appointed then to be the governor of Judah. And he was, over the people who remained in the land of Judah. And there wasn't a lot of people that were left there. And this governor tried to do well for Jerusalem and for the people, but there was an uprising. Another person came up and rose up against him, and they ended up killing this Gedaliah, who had been appointed governor. Verse 25, in the 7th month, Ishmael, son of Nethuah, whatever, struck down Gedaliah so that he died. And so it comes, Jerusalem, Judah have been captured. It's the fall. They are no longer a free people. Even the people that are left there can't seem to live together under an appointed governor of their own people. And then the very last thing we look at in 2 Kings is, King Jehoiakim, who was king when Nebuchadnezzar first came in and was captured, and then, these other, and taken off to Babylon. And so it's the 37th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin, rather, he was then released from prison. He set aside his prison clothes, and he dined regularly in the king's presence. So this disposed king of Jerusalem, Judah, has been in captivity for all these years in Babylon. And, but the Babylonian rule is so secure, so solid. There's not enough Israelites left really to rebel against them or to do anything. And so this former king receives his freedom, so to speak, but he's still within the palace of the king of Babylon. And so still is, not anywhere like a free man at all, but he's a prisoner yet in exile, but not in prison, but he's definitely not a free man. And it's, it's such a sad thing to me it is. I'm sure it is to everybody, but to think of how God has faithfully been trying to lead his people and forgiving them and being great, but yet the people just continue to rebel, and the kings, the rulers, and I think it just follows through today that so many people, when they get positions of power, they abuse that power, and they it's like the kings forget that, they are to be honoring God. And so many people in the world today forget that as well, that, to honor God. And It's one of the biggest things that we need to see in our world is this resurgence, of people honoring God, looking at God and respecting Him and following His ways. Tomorrow we begin the book of First Chronicles, and again it's just it's another telling of the story of the people of Israel.